Hello, all, and welcome to yet another edition of hrtech's Tech Talks. I'm extremely glad to be hosting Ankit Aggarwal, founder and CEO of Unstop, in today's edition. Ankit needs no introduction. He's been a very, very popular and leading founder in the recruitment tech space in India, more specifically, and now across the region. The biggest claim to fame for Unstop has been that all the four sharks in Shark Tank India signed up for Ankit's Unstop. And I think that's a great endorsement of the journey that Ankit has been having for the last 7 years. Thank you, Ankit, for joining us. It's a real pleasure to be hosting you.
Thank you so much, Sriram, for inviting. It's a pleasure to be here and looking forward to our discussion.
I start off with the first question that is usual on what are the top challenges that your clients are facing, both the business challenges and the talent related challenges?
No, I think, see, the business and the talent related challenges nowadays are similar, right? If the talent is not good enough or not as per what your industry, your company, or your job profile really wants, it will impact business, right? So let's dive into maybe few of those elements and I believe when we are discussing with the CHROs or the businesses, I think the first top aspect is skill gaps and talent shortages, right? And it basically moves forward in terms of a mismatch that happens between the skills and the job requirements. Correct? Uh, World Economic Forum predicts that by 2030, over 1 billion people will need to be reskilled due to rapidly changing technology demands. And the main problem is that these emerging technology skills, many people don't know what they would need in a year from now, right? Right now, we know AI, data science, cybersecurity are high in demand. The same may be rehashed, or some other skill may come in, which might be in high demand later. And then what happens is then they would need that talent as of yesterday. So it's a chicken and egg situation overall, right? And that's why I think there have been cases where if speak about these three, right? AI, data science, and cybersecurity. In US alone, one study said that hundreds of thousands of unfilled cybersecurity roles is a major gap. They're not able to find people who can plug their security aspects or so, right? So skill gaps and talent shortages, and this is also to do with education versus industry requirement. I think one other aspect is the industry moves forward far quicker than the academic curriculum, right? An academic curriculum takes at least, in my view, half a decade to get accustomed to new courses, right? They are slow to adapt. They basically are not able to sort of bridge those gaps between these two. So I think one is that mismatch of skills basis the job requirement that's there, the proficiency in those skills, and for that proficiency, the academic curriculum as such is missing. Right? That's the first aspect that they are more worried about. The second aspect, I think, in these words, and I'm sure you would know it, it's diversity and inclusion. Right? One is about the skills, the other is diversity and inclusion. How do I get to meet global diversity standards, right? Multinational companies want to balance, I mean, cultural expectations of diversity. So let's say uh, it can be gender diversity in West. It might be some companies operating in maybe Asia or Middle East may focus on different aspects like generational or socio-economical diversities, right? So diversity should not be only male and female or gender. It can be social, economically, or maybe generational as well, right? And the third, more importantly, is the employer branding and the candidate engagement piece. Okay. When I say that, what I mean is that they have been increasing their employer branding costs to attract the top talent not necessarily the right talent, right? The companies need to invest in employer branding, leverage social media, leverage platforms like Unstop, and maybe do multiple other areas to ensure that they're focusing on branding, whether it's small, medium, or large organization, to sort of compete with others, right? And that's, I think, is now playing a role in the way they are approaching this whole aspect of hiring the right talent. So for me, if I just want to name the top three, it will be a skill mismatch, how they are able to get the right guy with the right skills. The second is possibly on diversity and inclusion, how they can meet global standards faster. And the third is employer branding. How do they ensure that they they go in the consideration list of that candidate who really want to work with you? In these three, apart from obviously there will be others in terms of candidate experience, remote working, maybe cultural fitment, speed, or other things. But for me, these three are the topmost parameters.
Fantastic. And we keep reiterating that at this point of time, on one side, when tech companies are actually adopting a number of layoffs, the other side, when we talk to clients, they have been talking about a huge talent shortage in specific skills. So this is a labor market paradox that we have not seen earlier. Typically, in such
Yes.
times when there is a lot of supply, demand gets easily fulfilled. But today we are seeing this clear paradox that there is supply, but as you rightly mentioned, there is a huge shortage of specific skills. So,
Right.
which brings us to the next question. We have talked about a lot of challenges, and you did highlight the top three, right? Now, can you be specific on what is the problem that Unstop is trying to solve? And I'm sure all of startups keep pivoting. So, at this point of time, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? And I'm sure you have a lot of competition. What's Unstop's USP and critical differentiator in the market?
Sure. See, in one line, if I want to sort of just talk about Unstop is a category creator. See, we are here to solve a $7 trillion global productivity problem and revenue loss. And all of this is will be impacting close to about 470 million people per year. And the overall market size, as per estimates, is $600 billion, right? And the problems are related to inefficient talent discovery, right? Whether they are able to find the right talent, lack of engagement, inclusive engagement, right? So that both the parties can get to know each other really, really well, and the skills, right? So let me just tell you in terms of how are we able to solve these three, correct? We call ourselves that companies need to democratize their approach when it comes to engaging with their target audience and possibly hiring them. Both are interlinked, right? So now, many companies like Flipkart, Tata Sons, Reliance, the top recruiters, right? And many others, now what they're saying is that, hey, we know what skills we need. And we also know that we are not able to find these skills in a certain segment of premier colleges. But those skills may be there in some or the other person, pan India or across the globe, right? So, can we open our doors to every, and I'm just taking just for simplicity, let's say in this fresher and campus market, can I open my doors to every student, any college, any stream, so that everybody applies. We take them through assessments where they are able to track their key skills that we need for that particular job profile. And then once we have done that, we are able to hire them for the profile that we have selected them for, right? Now, in this whole process, imagine, let's look at what company is gaining and what candidate is gaining, right? So the company is gaining that the first is they are opening their doors to pretty much anybody and everybody, right? They are basically pushing themselves as an equal opportunity employer, and everybody respects equal opportunity employers. So they are the employer branding is taking a jump, right? Second is your diversity or inclusion. When you actually open your doors to pretty much anybody and everybody, the best of the best will sort of move forward, and it is up to you to decide their backgrounds and others, and all of that can also play a role, right? The third thing is that your internal, and we've seen that those intangibles, their internal reliance on their business teams to conduct more interviews goes low. So earlier, if you were doing 8:1 interview, 8 candidates to 1 hire, when you open and democratize, when best of the best are moving forward, that may reduce to only 3:1. So imagine rather than 8 hours of the business team, it goes down to 3 hours to select one candidate. And if you're, let's say, a consulting firm where every hour is important to be built, you're saving those 5 hours that can be built for as high as maybe $5,000, right? So effectively getting more money, reducing time, win-win situation, right? And the other thing is that with these engagements, you're also creating a pipeline for future hire. You may not hire them today, but you might be able to reach out to them 6 months down the line when you have those ad hoc requirements that, hey, I need 5 more people or 10 more people, right? So this is from the company's perspective. Now look at it from a candidate's perspective, right? One is that during this engagement, let's call it a hackathon or a case study or so, many a times the assessments are nothing but actual case studies that the employer's team is solving. Okay, just to give you a sense, Flipkart wanted to give a sense to all the candidates what it is like to be working for Flipkart. Simple, right? So then when candidate is going through that engagement, they do not only get to know Flipkart, they get to know what exactly they'll be doing if they were to be selected at Flipkart. And that's their choice whether they want to move forward or not. But at least from the company's perspective, you're creating brand ambassadors. And from a student's perspective, they'll be able to select, boss, they may not be able to select which industry, company, or profile they definitely want to work in. But if a student is applying across domains or so, they may be able to get to a point that, hey, boss, I know for a fact that this industry, maybe this company or this profile, I definitely don't want to work, right? Because my interests and all are not aligned, right? So I believe the overall the three problems that I talked about earlier, the employer branding, diversity, and skill mismatch or so, gets solved in this kind of an approach, which we call democratize your engagement and hiring, reach out to everybody through engagements, and then eventually hire them through internships, through jobs, or through XYZ mediums. And it's a win-win for both the candidates as well as the employers.
Fantastic. I mean, I really like the term democratizing engagement and onboarding for the simple reason. I remember even 15 years back, back in India, most companies would then talk about going to at least select top tier campuses for
Yes,
hiring. Even though they would not probably be the right fit talent, they might be the best talent, but they could never be the right fit talent for the organization. But essentially,
agree.
opening doors right now across campuses, I think you've truly democratized it. Perfect.
Thank you.
But when we talk to a lot of clients, Ankit, we still see a lot companies, not just small and medium, even large enterprises. They still have the traditional format for sourcing talent, for doing the recruitment process, which is, and we have always noticed, research has clearly said that amongst the HR process, recruitment has got the highest inefficiency in terms of human effort for scheduling, for screening, for sourcing, all of these aspects. So, how do you actually, why do you think companies hesitate to bring in automation in this space? And how do you help them in this process? How do you essentially convince them to adopt more tech?
Sure. No, I think let's try and understand what are the restrictions in every organization to, let's say, streamline the process, right? And I truly believe when earlier you were working majorly manually, right, to sort of screen and all move forward, there's always a technology that may exist or you can adopt to make your life easier. right? And that is true not only for the recruitment, but for everything, right? I think the first aspect when we speak to our clients, which became a bottleneck earlier and now through Unstop that's being resolved is high implementation cost. If you basically see, there were very, very big players, SAP, Oracle, who are creating HRMS, and they had this small recruitment platform. And I'm just sticking to the HR tech industry, right? And I think there were questions around initial investment, right? It's just not as easy as taking a product, right? They have to customize the whole product, which requires huge amount of cost. Then there were hidden costs and there were concerns on the ROI. So I think those aspects have been solved for because now those products are DIY basis, right? Like say at Unstock, 50,000 opportunities get listed on a DIY basis. People are doing it, right? They can actually do the whole engagement that I just talked about it themselves. And similarly, there are many other platforms or multiple other use cases as well. Right. So I think that was one aspect which has been sort of taken care of. Then the other aspect that they worry about is the complexity and the integration with the legacy systems. I'm just talking about those technical aspects, right? I believe we need to start somewhere, right? And if integrating historical content takes ages, then possibly the idea is to start fresh and then create a new database because the older one may not be relevant, correct? And if you have multiple technology platforms, that also becomes a breakage. See, as you rightly said, right, the people go at one place to do sourcing, at second place to do assessments, third place to do interviews, and possibly the fourth place to release the offer letters. And then the
Yeah.
fifth might be a complete HRMS where they want to integrate the data that has flown across these four. Doesn't really make sense, right? All five, if they can be combined into just one platform, then the same platform at Unstop, they can do sourcing, they can reach out to pretty much every student, they can invite applications from those students. They can assess those students. They can schedule interviews, shortlist them along with the next gen proctoring. And then they will also be able to release offer letters. And the information can flow through very, very easily if there is a legacy system involved, right? So I think what we have done is that we have tried to break those multiple notional elements because what happens is if you have a 10-member recruitment team, all 10 members may or may not be trained on all five systems. If you just have one system, it's much easier for them to be trained on it and much easier for the whole business team as well to hop on it to basically take those interviews, have the GD approval process and all of that, right? And so that's one. That's the second, which is the complexity of the whole process and how it has been solved. And the third is now employee resistance and I mean, I would say in consulting terms, change management, right? Everybody will resist a new system, right? And that's internal, that's cultural. I believe we need to start somewhere. If you can show them the benefits, I think that can be adopted. And the last question that I get from the HRs is data privacy and security, which is becoming a big, big thing. But when you have companies who do global contracts who are spread across globally, everybody can access it. I think we have sort of where the ball drops is when they are comparing apples to oranges. The apple being, let's say, a company which has pretty much everything, a global outreach and best, and the oranges are a very, very small company. They might be offering a cheaper cost, but that cost may come at a data privacy concern, right? And I think those aspect also needs to be factored in when those things are being discussed. So I think from that point of view, these are the four elements that we believe, and we've made massive, massive strides to ensure that when they are looking at Unstop, all these elements are solved for, and that's why we've been able to crack all the top recruiters, the names that I just
Okay. Perfect. I completely agree with you on this. So, would you like to share additionally what kind of best practices that your clients essentially use that you have found very interesting, and then probably you refer to other clients to do it in this process of breaking down the silos, using one single platform. Any best practices in recruitment tech?
No, I think in the recruitment tech, Sriram, what we have started seeing is, and we have many, many clients who were using multiple platforms for those specific purposes, like sourcing, assessment, interviews, and offer letters, and then the ATSs also. Now, what they have done is they have internally hopped on to, let's say, one platform like an Unstop to do pretty much. So this is one aspect, a clear shift that we are taking, right? The second is from the candidate experience point of view as well. The shift that we have seen is that organizations also want candidates to have a seamless and a very, very meaningful, better experience right from the time they touch base with that candidate for the first time until that candidate is either hired or rejected, or even after rejected, can they again groom that candidate for next 6 months so that he upskills himself or herself and apply again, right? Now that also attaches for employer branding, because if the candidate experience, irrespective selection or rejection, if that's really, really awesome, they will speak about you behind your back in a positive light, right? And that's basically employer branding at play. And we have seen many of our clients do that only for specifically this purpose. So when you integrate everything, not only you are improving your processes, that's a shift. Yeah, you are actually ensuring that the candidate experience is improved, because again, they will also be touching base at one platform. And the third, more importantly, is that you're saving time, money, and you're creating value for both the stakeholders, right? And from that best practices point of view, we have seen it empty number of times. All the top recruiters and the others are now following suit, right? The other aspect, I think, what they are also looking at is that they want to minimize their team's time in monotonous and manual stuff. If they
Hmm.
had five-member team, they are not looking at firing. No, that's not the intention. But if a five-member team was responsible for two or three BUs in a big organization, can the same five-member team be responsible for double the BUs or double the headcounts or so, right? How do they optimize it? Those are the questions that are also coming into those meetings. And those questions, the problems are getting resolved only through that integration and one single experience piece itself.
What we are seeing, Ankit, is that whenever we talk to a lot of companies which essentially do not have processes in place, the first thing that they say is we don't know where to start, right? And
Hmm.
a lot of the companies have realized the importance of going digital and adopting more tech into the process, right? So, what would be your advice to all of these companies, small, medium, large, that are embarking on their digital HR journey and are trying to adopt technology and data in an accelerated fashion?
I think my advice, generally, when a person asks, right, what is my advice on starting up a startup, right? I always say that start today as if there is no tomorrow. So whatever you want to do, decide, right? If you have taken a decision that you have to move to a better technology platform, right? Start today. It's very simple. That's the first thing that needs to be culturally out of your head. That boss, we need better aspects, right? When you're doing it, I think you need to also think through what is your current pipeline or value chain. Not all organizations are investing equally or entirely in some of these elements. For some, sourcing is not a problem. For some, assessments is not a problem. For some, interviews is not a problem. right? But effectively, you need to identify what is your main problem for which you are actually taking charge of a new recruitment platform, right? And then you need to figure out that whether that problem is there, whether that solution is there in that, right? And then there are also some latent needs. Okay. Many people say, and then when we spoke about, right, Shriram, you were speaking about legacy companies and all of them only start with 10, 20 colleges. Now, it's not a problem. And when you speak to them, they will say that, hey, I wanted to hire 20, I've hired 20 after going to 10 campuses. Simple, right? But when you dive deeper and you see the data for next 2 years, how many of those hires have stayed with you for a longer term? Right? That tells you that possibly the guys that you hired might be the top guys, but are not the relevant people who should stick around. Right? And we've done this study for a couple of our clients, and the results were alarming, Sriram. Uh, we got to know that every company cannot do or cannot match aspirations of a top talent, both in terms of career growth trajectory and money, right? And that's why within a year or within 2 years, for some of our clients, the attrition was more than 50%. And then they basically, and I'm just saying that they may not realize it once this comes on. So I would say that go into the data, analyze where you are today, right?
Okay.
Then possibly the best maybe scenario might be to then change your approach and democratize it and get the best or best relevant people, those 20, for whom your brand is aspirational, not you recruiting those who are aspirational for you. You need to be aspirational for others, right? So deep dive into that data and find this out. Second is find out what is the breakage in their whole value chain. And the third is that then look out for the technology platform which is able to solve for the first two and maybe beyond that. Right? In these three aspects, if you're able to get around, you'll be able to streamline your processes, find the right technology platform, and move forward in an efficient manner.
Fantastic. Fantastic, Ankit. I think over the past, 20, 25 minutes, we've covered a lot of aspects, right? We started off talking about the challenges that your clients were facing. We clearly identified three out of the many that your clients are facing. Number one is definitely the skills gap issue, which clearly is a problem starting at most clients. Number two, how do they meet the D&I global benchmarks is the second challenge. And number three is how do you position your brand? How do you have a strong employer value proposition? How do you have a strong employer branding out there to attract the right fit talent? So I think when we look at all of these challenges, that's where you clearly highlighted that Unstop is a category creator and you are chasing the trillions of dollar productivity global market.
Revenue loss, yes.
Yes, that's so clearly we have seen Unstop proving to be a market leader in that space. When most companies just focused on hiring, I think you brought in that element of engagement into the entire gameplay, not just for the hiring process, but even before hiring, bringing in that engagement. And that's why you rightly pointed out how not only does it help in building them pipeline for the future, you are also actually democratizing the entire
Correct.
process of engagement, hiring, and onboarding. And when we looked at the challenges that you were facing, that your clients were facing on why they were not adopting tech, I think the high implementation costs, which were usually associated traditionally with the large providers, there was a strong concern on ROI. HR teams are very good in talking about attrition and retention, but converting it into dollars and cents is always an issue. We struggle on providing ROI. And number three is all the systems operated in silos, never talk to each other. So this disintegrated
Yeah.
approach proved to be an issue. And I think again, Unstop essentially has plugged in these challenges by bringing in high data security privacy aspects, bringing one platform that solves multiple problems involved in the recruitment
Exactly.
process, like sourcing,
Yes.
screening, engaging, onboarding. So with this, I think you've really made a huge difference. And I think the couple of aspects that you highlighted was in how by integrating, having one stop system for all your problems improves the performance of the HR team and the recruitment team. It
Absolutely.
also improves candidate experience, saves time and
Correct.
money, and especially helps you in your growth, dramatically bringing down your time to hire and the cost per hire.
Correct.
And your final advice for HR teams that are embarking on their digital journey was start today as if there is no tomorrow. I think that's a clear statement that will stay with me really. And then the aspect on how do you identify using the data, not the best talent, but the right fit and the
Right,
relevant
right.
talent for your organization. Once you identify that with data, then adopt technology in an accelerated fashion to bring the entire piece together. So I think I hope I made justice in summarizing our discussion, Ankit.
Yes, yes.
Anything to add before we close the session?
No, I think the world is moving towards technology, AI-enabled skill-based hiring or so. We just need to ensure that we take proactive measures rather than reactive measures because every right hire improves your business and every wrong hire impacts your business growth. And this is what all the HRs or people managers need to know. That's it.
Perfect. Be proactive, not reactive. Every right hire improves business. Every wrong hire impacts business. Thank you very much, Ankit, for
Thank you.
being part of this session. We really look forward to hosting you again on this Tech
Thank
Talks.
you. Thank you, Shriram. Loved interacting with you.